This is the Camp Iron Mountain Podcast, a place to learn about U.S. military history as told through the stories of service members, military units, and supporting civilians. Join us as we work to preserve their memories for future generations. Welcome everyone to the Camp Iron Mountain Podcast. I'm your host, Gabriel Suarez. Thanks for joining us today for the second of a two-part interview with our guests, U.S. Army veterans Kenneth Williams, Joe Paez, and Dale Comstock. In this episode, you'll hear them speak about their participation in Operation Urgent Fury as part of the 82nd Airborne Division's Long-Range Reconnaissance Platoon. If you missed it earlier, please go back and listen to episode 11 to hear the first part of these three friends' story of joining the Army and serving together with the 82nd Airborne Division. The island nation of Grenada is the smallest and most southerly of the Windward Islands in the Caribbean Sea, with a land area of about 220 square miles between the main island and its smaller surrounding islands. Grenada is about 100 miles north of Venezuela and 1,500 miles southeast of Key West, Florida. It gained its independence from Great Britain in 1974. In 1979, the New Jewel movement, which was a Grenadian communist group, seized power in a coup. The new Grenadian leader, Maurice Bishop, named himself Prime Minister. He suspended the Constitution and detained several political prisoners. By September of 1983, an internal power struggle began, and Bishop was pressured at a party meeting to share power with Deputy Prime Minister Bernard Coard. Bishop was placed under house arrest by his own party's Central Committee as a way to pressure him into the changes. On October 16th, word of Bishop's secret detention leaked out, and a crowd of loyal supporters gathered in protest and forcefully freed Bishop. Thereafter, a confrontation between Grenadian soldiers loyal to Coard and civilian protesters supporting Bishop ensued. Among the 19 soldiers and civilians that were killed during the melee, Maurice Bishop, his partner Jacqueline Kreft, 2 cabinet ministers, and 2 union leaders were murdered by a firing squad of soldiers. On October 22nd, U.S. President Ronald Reagan directed that planning be conducted for a military intervention. Soon after, the invasion of Grenada was authorized, codenamed Operation Urgent Fury. Combat operations began on October 25th, led by a joint Special Operations Task Force conducting missions throughout the island. Conventional combat units from all the services followed behind the special operators, including the Army's 82nd Airborne Division and a Marine Corps task force attached to the Navy's Independence Battle Group, which had been diverted from its assigned deployment to the Middle East. At the time of the invasion, Grenada had a population of about 91,000. About 700 American students lived on the island, attending medical school at St. George's University School of Medicine. Also on the island were nearly 800 Cuban nationals. A large number of these Cubans were construction workers who were working on the expansion of the Port Salines airfield. Most of the workers were also part of the Cuban military. Combat operations lasted until November 1st. Military troops from the United States and Caribbean Regional Security System countries remained on the island through early December 1983. At the conclusion of Operation Urgent Fury, 19 American service members were killed and somewhere between 125 and just over 200 were wounded. I've included links to further readings on Operation Urgent Fury in the episode show notes. Now please enjoy episode 12, From Friends to Brothers, Operation Urgent Fury. I guess getting to the main crux of the interview, your guys' participation in Operation Urgent Fury, going back to before you guys even were alerted, do you guys recall anything in regards to what was going on in the world, those few days beforehand? I think the only thing big in the news was, the Beirut barracks bombing a few days ahead of time. And then did you guys even hear about a coup in Grenada that you should have to worry about?
No, we didn't hear about the coup. Did you guys hear about it?
I heard
I don't
I
know.
heard I heard a little rumor about something happened down there, but it wasn't really big news. but that was a little
Actually,
indicator something's going on. Yeah.
if you guys remember, we were doing an exercise with Second Battalion or Second Brigade, and that exercise they had taken Sicily drop zone, and they chalked out an area on Fort Bragg that was exactly the size of Grenada, and we were actually I was actually at headquarters because I think it was Sidney Roberts was my squad, our team leader at the time, and he was out getting some kind of penicillin shot or something. I'm not sure, but Sidney was a crazy dude, man. And so I had to go to the briefing and it was back at with Second Brigade, and we were we were going to do a training mission on this island, and I can't remember the name they used it, Operation such and such, but it was all about this Caribbean island and so on and so forth. But in the middle of us prepping for this training, the Beirut bombing happened, and we were all called back, and like a day afterwards. And I thought for sure when we got called back, because I think we were broken down into six teams, six-man teams, and I think at that time we all had to be, at least two teams had to be ready to go because we supported different brigades.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being called back and to the barracks. Dale, I think you had just started PNOC.
I was in Recondo school. I was in Recondo school. Yeah, I was in Recondo school when that happened.
There you go. And so I get called back, and I think they ended the mission, the little mission, this Caribbean island mission that we were chalking out, that we had mapped out over Fort Bragg. And lo and behold, when I look at the maps back in that time, that Sicily drop zone was situated on this in this area as the island's new airport that was built by the Russian and Cuban army.
Mm-hmm.
And the makeup of that training exercise had the 82nd jumping onto that runway. There is a runway on Sicily drop zone, and it's fairly large. So that just tells me in retrospect that probably that mission was the total invasion of Grenada was probably solely meant for the deployment of the 82nd Airborne Division, and somewhere between the Beirut bombing and the actual coup that took place and the execution of the Prime Minister, I think it was Bishop, was the Prime Minister down there at the time. Somewhere in between, it became a joint force mission, and that's when we had Navy SEALs, we had Delta, we had SF, we had everybody else involved at that time as well. I don't think they expected it to be that quick.
Yeah.
That we would get called to answer, or at least protect our students.
Yeah.
That were down there at St. George University.
According to the timeline I read, the 82nd, you guys were officially alerted on October 24th, and then you guys started your in-hour sequence to prep to go. I guess since Dale was technically still in school at the time, Joe and Kenneth, do you guys want to talk about your experiences going through the alert process and what you guys did to prep?
Oh, yeah, that's kind of what every soldier goes through when we go to, when you get alerted, you go to Green Ramp, and in the holding area there, because all your gear, you got all your gear with you, and you got your sand tables, and you're getting your op order and everything, and you're going through the motions. And then as you're leaving that station, and you're going through the gate, you got to pass between an ammo issue point before you get on the aircraft. And we always know if it's real, if it's going to be an EDRE, which is an emergency deployment readiness exercise, or if it's going to be real. You don't know.
Yeah.
We all know when they issue live ammo, then you know you're going somewhere. And as we're going out of the holding area and going toward the aircraft, they start issuing ammo to us, live ammo and grenades and
Real grenades.
and claymores, and we're like, oh, we're
Real,
going someplace. And then
yeah.
that's what we knew.
They were real laws. I remember that. And they
Yeah.
said, grab as many as you can carry.
Yeah. And then they still didn't tell us where we're going until we got in the aircraft, loaded up. And I don't believe they did until everything was ready to go. We were in the air. Then they told us we're going to a little island of Grenada.
Did you guys even know where that was?
Did not know. I didn't.
Yeah, I think it's exactly as Kenny mentioned. You know, the eye openers was when we got called back to the barracks. When I was down the street doing a briefing for this training exercise, got back down to the barracks. Everybody had their TV tuned into the Beirut barracks, and them pulling out them poor Marines and out of the rubble and stuff like that. That was really pretty heart wrenching. So
Yeah.
I was originally thinking, you know, that we were going to go to Beirut and put a hurt on somebody.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But of course, you know, when we got to Green Ramp and they were just telling us to load up, you know, load up and carry as much. They had open containers of just piles of live ammo, live grenades, and everything. And we're getting on a plane now. We never do that. We never do that in a call-up exercise, and where you get on the aircraft, you don't get ammo, and you never get on the aircraft with live ammo. So, you know, when we got on that aircraft, and it just like Kenny had mentioned, you know, that's when they informed us that we were going somewhere else. But we were still upset about the Beirut bombing. So
Oh yeah.
I don't know who was going to put a hurt on who, but you know, whoever was on the receiving end of what happened wasn't going to have a good day.
So I was in recon school, Recondo school. Sorry about that. And I remember it was about 5:30 in the morning. We had a formation for PT, and you could hear jets circling Pope Air Force Base, which is kind of unusual because there were no fighter jets stationed there, but they were actually circling the base. And then I remember the first sergeant came out and he started calling the roster. He goes, "If you hear your name called, grab your and go report back to your unit." So, but we didn't know what was going on. So, you know, he went down the list, and then I wasn't on the damn list, man. So, not at least not at first. And I'm like, what is going on here, right? And then it started to all make sense. And then actually, because everybody was left except for me, I was the only guy left in Recondo school doing it on my own. And they're like, well, we don't need you either, right? So go home. And so I said, thanks. So I left and I got back to the unit, and they had already deployed. So I talked to somebody that was in the headquarters, and I said, I want to go. And so they were like, well, they already left without you. And so they thought, well, you know what we could do? We could put you on a C-141 and you could escort a bunch of radios and batteries down there. And that would get you linked up with the platoon. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, yippee, okay, let me do it. And so I fly down there on a 141, you know, I'm going to deliver all this stuff. And I remember we landed, the airplane landed on the runway. And it was late in the evening when it landed, and I got off. We unloaded all the batteries and radios and stuff. And I was actually expecting somebody from the platoon of the company to meet me there. And the way I saw it play out was we're going to load all the stuff in a truck, and we're going to drive off together, and I'm going to meet the platoon. But nobody was waiting, and I stood there and waited, like literally sitting on a pallet by myself. And there was like two other people, what do you call it, the airfield. I forget what they call it now, but
like the air ops guy.
Yeah, he was basically a lieutenant, right? And he was there, and so a little time goes by, and he's like, "You got to leave." I go, "Yeah, my ride's coming. I know they're on the way." Even though I don't know that, I just kept saying that, hoping, and then I'm thinking, but if they don't come, then what, right? Are you gonna like what? Wait for a next airplane to come and pick me up? And actually, the airplanes don't come; they didn't fly at night, so that was the last flight. And so I was kind of like, you know, in Kabul. And so I thought, okay. I waited. Finally, the lieutenant comes over and he goes, "Listen, man," he goes, "you can't stay here." And I'm like, "Well, where am I supposed to go?" He goes, "I don't know, but you can't stay here." I go, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah, you got to leave." I go, "Where am I going to go? I don't know where I'm going, right?" And so he goes, "Well, you can't stay here." So I got a lieutenant telling me as a Spec 4 that I have to leave, right? In Grenada with bad guys running around everywhere. So I said, "Well, can I have some bullets?" and he gave me actually a couple magazines, and he didn't really know where to point me, what direction to point me. So I thought, well, I guess I'll just go walk off Grenada somewhere and just walk until I find somebody that I know, right? And so I literally walked off into the dark. I walked all the way down to what was the capital, guys?
St. George.
I literally walked all the way down to St. George from the airfield, right? Which was quite a while. It was hours of walking at night. I'm just me, and I'm thinking I hear like Cubans and PRA everywhere in the jungle, getting ready to ambush me. And I show up at St. George, and I'm kind of like looking around and go, nope, I don't see anybody that looks like an American here. And so I turn around and I started walking again, and I walked for hours and hours throughout the night. And literally, I was walking along the road, and it was pitch black, and all I heard was, "Halt! Who goes there?" And I recognized the voice. It was one of the guys on my team named Sean. And
Get out of here.
and I said, Sean? And he's like, Dale? And it's like, oh my God, we're like hugging each other. Oh, I'm so happy to see you, man, because I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know if I was going to meet anybody that night or not. Here I am walking by myself, young kid with a gun on Grenada with bad guys. And looking for the good guys, and and it's like, and now when I look back, it's like, who does like that? Who tells some spec 4, hey, just grab your and get out of here and go walk up in a combat zone and find your unit? I guess maybe they did that in World War II, but I'm like, but I thought we were a little bit more advanced at this point. I mean, after all, it was 1983, and but no, man. But anyways, I linked it with the platoon. I was a happy camper again, and then we started doing LRRP stuff again, and that was my experience with it. So
Wow.
yeah.
Kenneth and Joe, did you guys arrive with the first couple planes on the 25th?
Yeah, we did. We came down with the 82nd MP Company. They came. We rode in they had 60 gun jeeps, and they gave us a ride to our AO, the Area of Operations, where we're going to work from, and then link up with the G2 from there. However, we the rear door opens. Of course, it was a hot landing where the engines are running,
Mm-hmm.
and we came out, and there was explosions everywhere, still going on. There's bullets flying. You hear them all the time. You hear them, and we're getting up, and it was really surreal because we're like, it's like a war movie, This is real stuff. So,
did the plane stop, or you guys had to jump out of a moving plane?
It went very, very slow, very, very slow. It was creeping very slow down, and we were rolling out. The ramp came down. The jeeps were rolling out. We were getting on the jeeps, rolling out with the jeeps. They had the loadmasters had unhooked all the chains, and they were going out the jeep. The jeeps were going off, and I remember I hopped on the back of one of the jeeps. I hopped on facing the rear though.
Mm-hmm.
I had my rucksack on because we had to go quick, and I'm leaning back, and we're going out across the ramp and watching all the explosions and stuff, and it's taking us up in these hilly areas. And my first experience is it was bouncing around these jeeps, and I got bounced out of the jeep. I didn't have my helmet on, and it bam! I was like probably the first casualty from our platoon. It was funny because I got hurt. I'm thinking I'm gonna get hit or something. They were like, I fall out, and they said, stop. So, and I was out of the jeep on my back. But
So it's a replay of you guys in high school again.
Yeah, exactly again. So I got back in the jeep. Of course, I had my bell rung, but other than that, I was fine. And then we get back and we set up house, a little staging area, of course. Then I think we had some Air Force facts get assigned to us, and they took 2 teams out the first day. I think 2 teams went out the first day, and then while the rest of us were setting up house and getting ready for the next day, they didn't brief us on any indigenous animals or creatures that are around there.
Mm-hmm.
And that evening, I got stung by a freaking big ass centipede or the big 3 feet, 2 feet, whatever it is. He was big. Stuck me in the back of my head.
They hang from the trees.
I read a lot that there was no time to acclimate to the weather. It was just really hot.
It wasn't.
Caribbean hot.
It wasn't.
Yeah, they dropped that back door. Now you can never imagine being, in a C-130 and ever mentioning that, oh, that was great air conditioning in that C-130.
Mm-hmm.
But when they dropped that door, when we landed, and they dropped that door, the 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 heat was so heavy. It was so humid that I remember it pushing me back a little bit when that door hit the ground. And like, oh my God, where the hell is it? We landed in hell. But walking off the back of the aircraft, and like Ken says, you see the Cobra. We had the Cobra gunships back then.
Yeah.
And they're flying around and they're hitting targets, and the artillery just off the airport, they're firing volleys, and then the unheard and unseen Spectre gunfire, Spectre gunships, always circling above. That's when Ken, was mentioning we had this, we had a need to get to our CP, or the area we were going to operate from. But I was one of the first teams that had a mission right off the bat.
Okay.
And what we were trying to do is we were trying to position ourselves in the lead of a receding enemy. So they had aircraft and they had cell phones with Christmas music. They like to play it all the time. Yeah, but we were trying to get in front of the receding enemy, and they had an airfield on the other side of the island where they had a couple of aircraft.
Yeah, I think the Marines were responsible for taking that airfield early on.
Yeah, and they got there, and there was absolutely no resistance, and what they met was aircraft with no pilots and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
But we were also focusing on getting in front of the enemy because everybody was running from the airstrip, Point Salinas. They were running east, but on the way there was these reports of huge weapon caches, and on all these little knolls that made up the southern part of the island. And so we were also tasked to do go out and pick up different. I think they were called PRA, People's Republic Army members that were also their daytime job was a teacher
Mm-hmm.
or an educator of sort. So we would combine these missions with, get in front of anybody that is trying to escape the island, and then if you don't run into anybody on the way back, stop at this school and pick up this guy and that guy. We had actually a hit list
Mm-hmm.
of people that had gone to Cuba to train with the Cuban army, and that were part of this, PRA, and they were to be brought back in for questioning.
Mm-hmm.
And then as well, that was secondary to another mission that we had, and that was to find different weapons caches. We were in the LRRP unit at the time, so they had this LRRP unit that had this ability to get out and about and do all the stuff that is kind of a preceptor to the regular infantry, search and kill kind of stuff. And of course, we were well trained. We had our Air Force, even though we were trained in Air Force close air support. They assigned high-ranking Air Force officers to our organization to be the eyes and ears and the control center for the Spectre gunships.
Mm-hmm.
But you could tell those guys hadn't done that job for years, and were kind of just trying to get some awards on their belt because we operate under a command team, and all of a sudden we have a terrain expert, a trained specialist, and an Air Force Spectre gunfire officer trailing our team.
So you guys operated generally for the Division G2?
Yes.
You guys didn't support any of the brigades while they were on their clearing missions?
I think there was only one brigade on the ground, right?
I think 2nd Brigade was the first one in.
Yeah, I think so. In the Ranger Battalion.
Yeah. going to Dale, you showed up a day or two after everyone else did. And in your book, you mentioned getting a mission to go on an island. Was that the one island north of Grenada, or was this in conjunction with a different operation still on the island?
No, it was all part of the same op.
Okay.
We went out to Green Island. I can't remember if Joe and Kenny were there with me or not, but my team went out there, and a couple of things actually happened that preceded all that. One was, so Green Island was just a small island. Literally, I would say maybe,
You guys went. I didn't go. It was your team.
yeah, it was like maybe 250 by 200-meter square island. It was really small, man. Had a pinnacle in the middle of it, kind of like a little mountain, really a couple hundred feet up, but it was all jungle. But prior to us getting there, one of our other teams made contact with some PRA members that had come back to recover a weapons cache, which turned into a firefight and ended up with two of our guys getting wounded, and then several of the PRA getting killed. They found their bodies floating in the ocean. And then, of course, we went out there. My team went back out there again just to occupy the area, pull reconnaissance, and kind of detect and if needed, detect and engage anybody comes back digging up more cache. So we just spent, I don't know how long we were out there, maybe a week, kind of uneventful, except we almost got blown up by our own attack helicopter one night. It was kind of funny, but yeah, the guy was making a gun run. He had no idea there was a team on the island, and this pilot decided he was going to make a gun run and shoot rockets at this pinnacle on this little postage stamp that we're sitting on. And we actually saw him go up to altitude and then nose it down and start his attack dive. And I remember we just picked our shit. We just ran like hell and ran all the way to the edge to a cliff and started to jump off into the ocean. And we were throwing strobe lights everywhere, hoping he would see it and pull up. And he did. So it was uneventful, and a little bit of for a moment, a little bit of a pucker factor. But for me, Grenada was not very eventful. Nothing really happened to write home about, other than I got to sit in the jungle on my ass, and you can hear crabs sneaking up on you in the middle of the night, but you can't see them, but you can hear them. But yeah, it was it's a good way to kind of get your feet a little bit wet, But for me, it was it's just a little vacation in paradise.
Joe or Kenneth, do you guys want to any of the missions or patrols stand out? Any experience you want to mention?
I remember we were up in the Grand Etang up there on the top on the mission, like over watching some trails. Remember that? I don't know if you remember,
Yep.
Joe. And
Yep.
we got airlifted out like the next day or so after we did some walking down some trails and NVGs and stuff. And we had an issue where our helicopter, our Black Hawk, had lost power, and it had to auto rotate and restart his engines. And he was coming. He restarted them up. I remember that. But it was no problem. No, he restarted the engines, and we all landed safely. It was no issue. But it was scary for a minute though.
What about you, Joe?
Yeah, the one thing I do remember is, of course, every oddball mission or everything that came out subsequent to the overall mission, to search and destroy and kill all Cubans and PRA members that resist, was the British. I remember the British did quite support our mission down there in Grenada, but they still had a consulate there on the island, and they were constantly getting harassment fire, and they didn't know if it was the PRA or if it was, Americans that just didn't know the difference between a British person or, one of the islanders, but they suspected it was PRA. So I remember it was a most unusual infiltration technique that we drove in the back of a deuce and a half, and we were going to get the signal to jump out. We were covered over with a tarp, a six-man team. So we were going to get the signal to jump out. We were going to make our way into this consulate's backyard to basically pull security for this individual. It was kind of funny because it was like in the middle of nowhere, but there was islanders living all around him. So
Mm-hmm.
when we jumped out of the vehicle, now if you ask like a kindergarten to draw a kindergartner to draw a picture of a mountain, it's going to have like a peak on the very top.
Mm-hmm.
Mountains down there were just like that, man. I mean, you would if you were walking along a mountain ridge, you had to actually put your arms out to keep from falling off the mountain left or right, you know. And so we jump out of this damn deuce and a half, and we think it's a bunch of bushes, but it's a wall. It's an earth wall, and we jump into the bushes and boom, hit this wall, and then we had to lift each other up the damn wall and crawl our way about 40, 50 meters into this guy's backyard. Very manicured lawn, by the way. Very nice home. And then we hollowed out a large bush, and we sat in there for about 4 or 5 days in a bush. The whole team. The bush was that big,
Mm-hmm.
but we hollowed it out and camped out there for about 4 or 5 days, making sure that if anybody returns to harass the British consulate, we take care of it. But his dog knew we were out there, but he didn't. His dog for the first day and a half would constantly come out to the porch and bark at us. The consulate would come out there. He was afraid to get off the porch because he didn't know what was out there, but it was us.
Yeah.
And I've heard from somebody who identifies himself as being the son of that consulate, and I've heard from him saying that that was their family dog and so on and so forth, and yeah, he was told to get off the island, but he chose to stay anyways because he had been down there so long, and he's like, oh well, that's good to know that you Americans were actually taking care of my dad because our government didn't quite support what you guys were doing, and goes to say.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys recall what your guys' platoon role was on the island after combat operations were complete? Did you guys recall anything in particular that happened during this time?
Yep, a lot of sunbathing ops and beach operations.
I remember we were a few exercises, or we had moved into into like little villages to try to gather intelligence to find out where any PRA people were. We were doing that, and during that time we got a chance to try some of that island rum. It was it was very, very strong. I remember that. So anyway, but that's what then we moved into the Russian embassy. Remember that?
Yep.
Yeah, we moved in there and we camped in there for a bit before we left.
Well, before we left, we moved out to the eastern side of the island, and we camped out on the beach out there for a while as well.
Yeah. We blew up some stuff. Remember, we did some demo stuff and blew.
Yep.
Yeah, we blew some stuff
all
up.
the equipment, everybody else left. We had to deal with, get rid of it. So we just would shoot at anything. We had a big range, and we would just shoot these laws and our rifles, and they just didn't want to take anything back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But as well, we were
Claymore
working
mines.
because we ended up coming back. It was the first week in December.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people came back, and they're like, oh, hey, the parties.
Back to Fort Bragg or back to Grenada?
Yeah, back to Fort Bragg. They
Okay.
they flew out, and they were back already in Fort Bragg, but we had to stay
through December. Through December.
Yeah, all the way to December. We had Thanksgiving dinner. I remember Thanksgiving dinner there on the island, but all the way into December, where we were working with the quote unquote security force,
Mhm.
and coordinating with Jamaican and other West Indian organizations to help make sure that this stuff doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
And then of course it was a lot of walking through neighborhoods.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody down there carries a swing blade, machetes. So it's very easy to mistake a guy just strolling on a Sunday stroll with a guy who wants to attack you with a swing blade, right?
Mhm.
Machete, but it's just commonplace. But no matter what town we walked into, I could always remember somebody pointing out, "Hey, I know where there are some PRA." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, where?" Right over there, man. And I'm saying, "Okay, so if you walk past their house, can you point them out?" And yeah, but I'll keep going. Okay, so we would talk, and they would go walk down the street, and then they would point their machete at the house where the PRA are, and of course, what it would turn out to be is that one group of guys in every town that is pretty much harassing the rest of the town. Maybe
Mhm.
they're dealing in hash or marijuana or whatever. They're just a nuisance to the township, and so they
Yeah.
would always get pointed out. And of course, we would go and we would confront them, or we'd talk to them, we'd question them, and we had a list of people. And then, of course, we would find out what their names were. We would check what they're telling us to some of the neighbors, and they would confirm the name. And then we'd look on our list, and then, of course, we'd have them empty their pockets. And I remember a lot of times they would just put these little foil wrappings, and they'd have their hashish and what have you, and it wasn't of concern to me. It's just we would just tell them, hey, look, we're getting word that you're not such a good neighbor with the rest of your township, so
Mhm.
to avoid from us coming and interrupting your high again, just stop messing with your neighbors
Yeah.
because they're telling us that you went to Cuba and you got military training and you're wearing shorts that are camouflaged.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, I'll take these off." They wanted to have nothing to do with that. They were
Yeah.
just, enjoying the Rasta life or whatever it was, and irritating the shit out of their neighbors. But so back in like the middle of November and December, that's what I remember a lot of. And of course,
Okay.
I got the best tan of my life.
Yeah. When you guys got back in December, was there any celebrations or ceremonies when you guys arrived back?
Yes,
I don't
no,
remember. I don't remember. Do you remember any celebration? We got back last, huh? So I don't think so.
yeah. Well, everybody was already home, getting
Yeah,
ready
everybody
for
was already
Christmas.
there.
Hey,
Kenny,
Ken, just throw that thing out the window. Throw that
you're
shit out the window, bro.
Kenny, that ringtone, I swear to God, sounds like Christmas music. Here, you want to hear a ringtone? This is a ringtone right here, okay? That's a ringtone, all right? Get a ringtone,
Throw
would
that
you?
straight out the goddamn window, Kenny.
You guys are funny, man. You guys are
I
funny.
mean, eh, I mean, as we finish up our talk here, I mean, it's been almost 40 years already since Urgent Fury. What are you most proud of, I guess, reflecting back on that time? Dale, you want to go first?
Oh man, so yeah, man, I can't believe you just said how long it was. Damn, it's that long. But yeah, I guess it is 40 something years now.
Wow.
Man, I'm 58 years old. So is Joe, and so is Kenny. We're getting like to be grandpas. We are grandpas.
Yeah.
But
Kenny's
yeah, man,
59.
I've watched a lot of shit. I watched, since I stayed in the longest, I've seen, the transition the military has gone through. And, be honest with you, in the 80s, although I actually liked that time, I actually liked the post Vietnam era. And actually, one of my biggest regrets, to be honest with you, is I would have liked to have been in the Vietnam War. I've been in every campaign, literally every campaign since Grenada to the present. But
Hmm.
some reason I just that era for me was something I don't know, man. It just it's left an impression on me, you know. And then I watched the changes go from like, you know, and I know Joe and Ken remember this. We used to be able to go during lunch across the street to the PX, and we were allowed 2 beers for lunch, right? With our lunch,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
you know, that's how it was. We could run down the road in group formations, and you know, we could have fun and call people fat, whatever, right? And you know, and actually we were telling the truth because we didn't call skinny people fat. That didn't make any sense. So, but you know, those were the days. And then you know, all this you know, PC stuff started setting in. You know, they no marijuana, which okay, I get that. But you know, then it just got more and more and more political over the years. And I actually retired in 2001 when General Shinseki, you know, decided that, you know, he actually. So what happened was, if you remember, he was, I believe, the Secretary of Defense. He came to Fort Bragg, came to a Special Forces, basically a ceremony, and was just impressed with all the Green Berets. He goes, you know what? I want everybody in the Army to have a black beret. And they're like, but sir, that belongs to the Rangers. I don't care. I want everybody to have a black beret and feel good about themselves. So, so that happened. It took away the black beret from the Rangers, gave it to, you know, the hamburger clerk, cook, you know, the clerks and everybody else, so they could feel good about themselves. And
I felt good about myself.
yeah, and so I saw that. Yeah. What really I enjoyed, the time that I enjoyed the most, besides my time, you know, as a Delta Force operator in a Green Beret, in the early days of the 82nd, was that that same, you know, like watching the movie Platoon. You know, that was,
Mhm.
you know, there was, you know, although there was, you know, there was a sense of camaraderie there. You know, the guys were unified, you know, and you know, because they all knew that their lives depended on each other, and it was a brotherhood, and that's how it was in 82nd, and when we were there. But I do remember those days. I remember the days being, you know, going to the field, being hard, you know, and you know, and I feel like I mean, in one way, I feel like everybody should have to experience that, or every young man in America should have to experience that, because it's a life changing event. I think Joe and Kenny will agree that it has made us, in a lot of ways, better men. You know, it has also taught us how to endure hardship, and how maybe not to get so emotional about petty shit in life, you know,
Mhm.
because when you've been there and done that, it's like, pff, if you can do that, you can do anything. And so that's kind of my take on it.
Ken and Joe, do you guys kind of agree? Even though you guys were really good friends in high school and have maintained that friendship throughout your lives, do you think your time in the service together did that do anything to strengthen what you guys already had?
I
I
like to
think,
think so. I think it did.
yeah,
From on my part, I think it is. It is.
we went being good
Um,
friends to being brothers.
yeah, we.
I don't want to put it in terms that that I don't appreciate my own birth brothers,
Hmm.
but I think my relationship with both Ken and Dale will never change uh, any way or anything they can possibly do that would never make me wane on the fact that they're also my brothers.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think and the caveat off what Joe's saying, just an example. We were so intertwined whereas I could fly in on my own, as I mentioned earlier, on leave and have Joe's dad, mom pick me up from the military base, the airport at any time, and they were do it gladly while my mom was at work,
Hmm.
and they were home already. So it was, and that happened like numerous times. Or we'd all interact or have outings together or go someplace. It was when we lived in at Bragg, we lived near each other, and we all interacted also off base, you know, uh, together. So it was I think it kept us close, you know,
Hmm.
and even still today, I mean, I often I was, you know, Joe and I always talk. Dale, he's out of the country, but he's still always on our thoughts and in our prayers, you know, because
Yeah.
I'm very, and I told Joe this before, and I told Dale this. I'm very proud of Dale. Dale is, you know, he's gone above and beyond and I don't know if you can quite gather or understand this, but I mean, Dale is like, he's like the top 1% of the military. That's very
Mhm.
few, and he was one of us. You know,
Yep.
Even though I didn't go that far or Joe didn't go that far, Dale did. He's one of us, so he made it. It's almost like we made it. You know, he represented. You know, he's part of the Sea Force, the wrecking crew. We called ourselves. Remember that, guys? Sea Force, the wrecking crew. Yeah, the wrecking crew.
Yeah, if I had to sum it up, and I had to rob a 7-Eleven, I would pick Joe and Kenny to do it with me.
All right, I guess we'll have to keep it at that, just in case that ever does happen. So,
And my job would be to drive the vehicle.
thank you, gentlemen, for this talk, and I really, really appreciate it. And hearing about your, especially having done 20 myself, we love hearing about the guys who came before us, and I really appreciate everything you guys have done and trailblazed for the rest of us.
Thank you, and thank you for what you've done too.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.